So I'm gonna be honest, I kind of didn't want to talk about this because I don't want to be thought of as a drama channel. Like I like recommending cheap cards, I like opening up product, that sort of thing. But I've seen a lot of this talked around on the YouTube, and I don't think anybody's given it its due diligence on the potential impact that this could have on the market and the benefits that people would get from this story coming out. PokeBeach released an article, what is it, 10 days ago, that talked about black bolt and white flare to experience severe shortages, but TPCI now catching up. They apparently received word that is according to one of TPCI's biggest US distributors. So I'm going to talk about that very shortly. According to one of TPCI's biggest distributors, and I put that in air quotes, this set is going to be underprinted, and a lot of stores will not receive any product. Now, we'll talk about that later too, about these stores receiving no product, because I believe that's true, but I believe it's true for a different reason. I've been thinking, like, it mentions that Prismatic Evolutions is seeing reprints and Surging Sparks is seeing reprints, and those reprints are what Pokemon focus on instead of printing Black Bolt and White Flare, which is possible. It is absolutely possible that they focused heavily on reprinting Surging Sparks because Surging Sparks started seeing supply issue back in like late November, early December, and this would align in the time frame of it takes Pokemon about 6 months for a set to catch up. If they have to reprint it, they usually have 6 months of a print window for a set. Like if a new set is revealed, they started printing about 6 months before then. But the Prismatic Evolutions is kind of confusing because Prismatic's Evolution supply issues would have been occurring after they started printing Black and White. Black and White would have started printing right before Prismatic Evolutions released, unless they had a delay in printing Black and White. And I don't think that they would have just stopped the printers on Black and White just to reprint Prismatic Evolutions. I could see them adding Prismatic Evolutions into the printing process, which means that less Black Bolt and White Flare got printed, but I can't see them outright just stopping the print or reducing the print of Black Bolt and White Flare completely just to reprint Prismatic Evolutions Elite Trainer boxes, especially because we're constantly seeing these products just trickle down and drop into big chain stores. I want to talk about this article more so in the terms of like the information we have and where I think this information came from, because obviously PokeBeach didn't name his source. This article came up a few days later, and I feel like this article has been used in the context without actually paying attention to all the facts that the last year Pokemon printed less cards. Pokemon printed 10.2 billion cards from March 2024 to March 2025, and they're trying to point out that that's 1.7 billion fewer than 2023, but it's also 3 countries fewer as well. And if we look at the last time that Pokemon printed roughly for the same amount of countries, 89 countries in the year of 2022 to 2023, they printed 9.7 billion. So when we go back to the idea of looking at 90 countries versus 89 countries, we have printed more than those 89 countries with the 90, but we are not matching 93 countries. So people are using this information right here about how much has been printed and how we've received less this year, but they're not even remotely mentioning that it's also less countries included in those numbers. And I'm pretty sure if we had those other 3 countries listed, we'd probably be close to the same amount. We would probably be above 11 billion. Might not be all the way to 11.9 billion, but I think we would be over 11 billion if we had those last 3 countries included, personally. But at the same time, less countries means less cards are printed. Sure, we might be a little under, we might be a little over, it's hard to say. But at the same time, you also got to remember that in this time frame, sets like Temporal Forces, sets like I think Paradox Rift is included in this, and these sets were a little less printed just because not as many people were hyped for them, right? We've seen Paldea Evolved and especially Obsidian Flames not move. We've seen them at $80 not moving on the market. So Pokemon is going to print a little bit less for those sets because they know that those sets aren't hot. Those sets do not have fan favorites. Those sets are not in high market demand. So that number does decrease when you have no desire to reprint a set, right? The number decreases if Obsidian Flames is sitting and you have no need to reprint it. That's what a lot of people ignore with this article. is that if Pokemon has Paradox Rift out there sitting, if distributors are full of Paradox Rift, why is Pokemon going to run to printers for that over something like 151, which needs a restock? And that's what a lot of people ignore, is that many of the main sets did not need reprints at this time, so Pokemon was not running the printers into the ground. Pokemon was not overprinting things. Pokemon was not running these printers 100% of the day, overprinting Obsidian Flames. Obsidian Flames is already at $80, $95 a box at most, and people were not buying it. So why would Pokemon go and flood the market with more Obsidian Flames? It does not make a business sense. So when they seen that the market was not moving well on Obsidian Flames and distributors were still backstocked on a ton of Obsidian Flames that they had ordered, they were not going to print more of it. So that is another reason why those numbers are falling a bit. And I think a lot of people ignore that. Less countries and the less need for reprints is a decrease. So a lot of people are ignoring those facts and they're just like, oh, Pokemon printed less. That's why there's not as much product. That is not the case. He mentioned in this article one of the biggest US distributors. Now, there are a few names that come into mind. First and foremost, MJ Holding. But MJ Holding on their site immediately mentions that they focus on Meijer and Walmart. How most stores will not receive no product? I doubt Walmart is going to have most stores not receiving product. So I doubt this information came from MJ Holding. MJ Holding would not know what an LGS is going to receive. They will not know any product that an LGS is going to receive. So I doubt it came from MJ Holding or Excel. I looked at Excel's marketing to see what stores they restock, and as you can see, they restock big box as well. They even mention up here that we focus on mass retail, supermarket, drug retail, and convenience and specialty retail. So they don't restock your local Pokestops and your local Poke card shops and your local collectible stores. These are not the distributors that do that. Now, if you want a list of distributors that would uh, become those stores, those businesses, you got companies like Mad Owl, GTS, ACD, Alliance, GTS, Peach State, right? And when it comes to the big five, Southern Hobby, Peach State, GTS, Alliance are pretty much up there, right? GTS, these are like your big distributors. Here's the thing is I worked with 3 of these, right? I know one of these does not give a lot of product. Southern Hobby does not give a lot of product, if any, to a small account. Like they focus on their big accounts and they focus on their brick and mortar stores. Peach State does not give allocation numbers until close to release, as well as Alliance. I never worked with GTS, so I cannot speak for GTS, and I'm not going to put words in GTS's. I'm not going to put information about GTS out there if I don't know it, right? But when it comes to Southern Hobby, Peach State, and Alliance, most people are not getting their numbers early. Mad Owl is the only distributor on this list that I can confirm for a fact tries to give early allocations. But Mad Owl is not one of the big five. Mad Owl is still a large distributor, but they're not the biggest distributor out of all of these companies. And then you got a lot of smaller distributors, less known, Magazine Exchange, ACD, Hemps, right? Echo Brand. So you do got some other like distributors out there that could be processing this information. But for me personally, I think if it didn't come from Alliance, GTS, Peach State, or Southern Hobby, I don't know if I trust that information, right? Like those would be the 4 where like if that information came from one of those distributors and those distributors were named, which is something I will always criticize is that when information comes out like this, nobody wants to name the actual distributor it came from, which makes it even harder to believe. But when it comes to these distributors, unless it came from one of those 4, I'm not going to believe it. Like Gold River distributors or distribution, I probably wouldn't believe that information if it came from Gold River, considering they only have one location, it seems, on this list. Or if it came from not Southern Hobby, Magazine Exchange, right? I might not believe that as much as if somebody told me it was GTS distribution giving this information. So one of the things I always ask is who's the distributor providing this information? And is it the distributor that is directly communicating this information, or is it one of these stores like Safari Zone, V Rare Store, who was the one who I'm believing passed this information on to PokeBeach? Because they're the only one I could find that tweeted information about black and white having a lot of stock issues. And if you could tell already, I kind of block half of these stores because I do not like dealing with them. But they posted out back on May 6th that this is going to be a limited sit compared to Destin Rivals. But they didn't even have their numbers, right? So they're just passing on this information. They're one of the stores that is arguing with people and defending selling at market as a store. And they will constantly troll. Like, they even tried to troll me over a silly joke post. That's why they got blocked. They're one of those types of stores. They're trying to be a Timu version of Sakura's Card Shop where they have the sass, but it comes off as cringe. But they're the first store that I've seen to post this information, and one of the only stores that pushed this general idea without naming a distributor that provided this information, right? I have not heard anybody mention a distributor by name that provides this information. And there has been multiple big accounts, people bigger than V Rare Store, people bigger than Forged and Fire in this hobby that have disputed this article already, that have said this article is misleading in the idea of what it's trying to present. So, Safari Zone talking about having distro access. They don't know where any product's being printed. That product is not printed for X amount of years. This idea of pushing FOMO. V Rare Store pushing FOMO. Forged and Fire and PDC Adrian have a history of pushing FOMO. They did it back with Paldea Evolved. They did it with Shining Face. They did it with Crown Zenith. They did it with 151. So there are multiple stores out there, multiple accounts out there that benefit from pushing FOMO. And what article is pushing FOMO right now? Exactly. So my theory, and this is just a theory, this is just what seems the most likely scenario, is that one of these stores reached out to PokeBeach, most likely provided them this information from distributors, and he ran this article because there is no distributor named. There is no reason why PokeBeach can't mention the distributor this information came from, right? If there was a top big distributor providing this information who's telling people that stores are not going to receive product, that it is going to be massively unavailable, that there's going to be less product out there on the market from different stores, why can't you name the distributor? Because remember, this is saying that they stopped this, they reduced the print on this to reprint this, but there is an exact 6-month time gap between these two sets. That means that they had to go in 2 minutes into this set being printed and be like, oh man, we really need to slow this print run down to print Prismatic Evolutions, right? I don't know. And then the fact that Prismatic Evolutions is already seeing constant and consistent restocks at big box, they may not be seeing it as much with the retail, or not the retail, but the LGS stores, the game stores, the card shops, but it is seeing a ton of restocks when it comes to big box, right? We're seeing a ton of drops online. We're seeing a lot of random drops in the big box stores, especially Target. Target gets so much product every week that it's insane to believe that Pokemon isn't running these printers to max capacity. This does support two theories that I have. First and foremost, the idea that Pokemon still focuses more on big box than LGSs. Because the thing about PokeBeach's article is either, no matter who he got this information from, this information is either affecting big box stores or LGS and online stores. And the reason why it can't affect both is they both use different strings of distributors, right? MJ Holding is not going to know Southern Hobbies or GTS's allocations, their product, and how they're distributing their product. And vice versa, Southern Hobby and GTS are not going to know MJ Holdings distribution of product and how much product they are getting, right? So whoever he got this information from, it only affects one side of the retail market anyways, right? So if he talked to one of these stores, right, who is passing off information from their distributor about short printing and about product not being available, then yeah, sure. You have the LGSs, maybe some of them are not getting product. Maybe LGSs are not getting as much product. But that LGS and that distributor do not speak for Big Box. Big Box could be flooded with this product. Big box could be overwhelmed with this product, so much so that it sits on shelves because of how much is available. But then vice versa. If he talked to MJ Holding, and this is what MJ Holding said, hey, most of our Walmarts are not getting product, which is, I'm pressing X to down on that one. But let's say that is the case, right? That doesn't speak for what LGS allocations look like, right? So that is one of my theories, is that Pokemon is focusing more on big box, and this information that PokeBeach got was from one of these stores that uses distributors, and it may be a hyperbolic statement to help build that FOMO and help support the idea of these shops selling at market price when they put pre-orders up. But that is just a theory. There is no true evidence supporting that claim. It is just my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to my other theory, the idea that most stores will receive no product, if this information did come from, let's say, V-Rare Store or Forge and Fire or one of their distributors, right? I actually can see some of these distributors saying that most stores want to receive no product. Because, guys, do you know how many stores were not ordering Pokemon that are trying to order Pokemon now? I actually support this. I think distributors should tell them, if you did not order Scarlet and Violet through Paradox Rift on release date, we're not giving you anything, right? I 100% support that. If you did not order this stuff on release, we're not going to give you anything now. If you have not ordered any EX battle decks or any collection boxes when they wouldn't sell for $12, if you didn't order Houndstone EX boxes on release, you're not getting any black and white. You're not getting any Destined Rivals. You're not getting any of the new Mega set, the Inferno X set. You're not getting these things. I support that. And I hope that that is what was intended. That we're not going to give a lot of our product to the other stores because they didn't order Pokemon. I would love for distributors to institute that policy. I don't care how much you spent. You weren't ordering Pokemon. You're only into Pokemon because it's hype. And eventually you're going to burn us by ordering too much. We're going to get that product in and you're going to tell us, no, you don't want it. Right? There are going to be so many shops that do that, the distributors, and they're going to try to push it onto the shops that deal with Pokemon, right? So to me, I support the idea of not selling to every store or not giving every store allocations, especially stores that only started getting allocations with Prismatic Evolutions or Surging Sparks when Pokemon ended up getting hyped. But when it comes to just stores not receiving anything, I would love to see a time where somebody like Forged and Fire or Paladin Cards or any of these shops that have been doing this for years get no allocations for Black Bolt and White Flare, right? Most of the stores that receive no product probably don't order a lot to begin with, that probably don't get a lot of product to begin with, and I support that. Put all of the product into the stores that have been hustling and doing this for years. The way this is worded is this is intending to say that it's so under allocated, so under printed, so small of a print run that these stores are not just getting any by happenstance, right? There's just not enough available to go around. And I don't believe that. I personally don't believe that. And I personally think that there's a lot of evidence out there between these stores and these big accounts that have disappeared from the hobby, having a history of pushing FOMO every set. The fact that there's no named distributor in terms of providing this information, and there never is and never going to be, because this information produces FOMO and causes people to overpay for pre-orders. Yeah, it's just my personal takeaway, guys. I just been observing this from the sidelines for a couple weeks. The school semester's ending, so it's just been really, really busy for me. But hopefully you guys use your independent thinking and develop your own opinions. Because once again, everything I've said is my own opinion, right? This is the what I see as somebody who's a veteran in the hobby and as somebody who's been in the hobby for a long time. This is the stuff I'm observing. So maybe my information is wrong. Maybe I don't have all the facts. Maybe somebody has named a distributor and I haven't caught that information. But to my knowledge, there is not any transparency when this information ever pops out. Nobody names a distributor. There are other big stores who go against this. Stores that sell at MSRP who do not sell at market, such as Danny Phantom, who dispute this information. But the stores who try to sell at market all defend this information. And once again, information like this line right here supports the idea of pushing FOMO and pushes the idea that paying market is worth it because you might not find this product elsewhere. Anyways, guys, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Remember, as always, to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know your opinions down in the comment section below. And as always, remember to keep it classy and stay awesome.